This is the second season of the anime. The story continues with Seiki's unlucky and funny life. But before we talk more about it, let's meet the characters in this anime. First, there's Seiki Kusao, the main character. He has amazing psychic powers and can control almost anything with his mind. Seiki has some friends at school. His male friends are Nendo, Kaido, Arin, Reita, Hero, and Saiko. He also has female friends like Chiyo, Mera, and Kokomi. The girls seem to like Seiki a lot. The second season starts with Reita, one of Seiki's classmates, asking Seiki for help. Reita wants Seiki to help him impress the girls at school. Reita is a playful and flirty boy who loves getting attention from girls. But, like Seiki, he also has a special power. He can talk to the spirits of people who have passed away. One day, Seiki tells Reita to join Hero for tennis practice, so Reita will stop bothering him. At first, Reita doesn't want to play because he doesn't like sports. But when he sees a pretty girl watching the practice, he gets excited and tries to show off. Surprisingly, Reita is really good at tennis and can even keep up with Hero, who is super athletic. But then the girl leaves the field. She tells Reita that she likes him for who he is, not because he's good at tennis. Meanwhile, Arin, who used to be a troublemaker at his old school, gets a challenge letter from a group of bullies at Seiki's school. Arin decides to face the bullies so they will stop bothering him, showing them he knows how to fight. After winning the fight, Arin gets a love letter from someone. He gets so excited that he even starts imagining his future and comes up with names for his kids. But sadly, the love letter turns out to be a trick by a group of bullies from another class who want to challenge him. Arin gets really mad and yells at them, scaring them off before they can even start the fight. Later that day, Seiki dresses up as a cute girl named Kuriko to stand in line at a cake shop. The shop is famous for its yummy coffee pudding, and Seiki really wants to try it. But while he's there, Kokomi and Mera also come to the shop and end up sitting at the same table as him. After enjoying his coffee pudding, Kuriko tries to leave quickly but accidentally drops a bag, spilling books everywhere. Kokomi notices one of the books has Seiki's name on it. She thinks Kuriko is Seiki's younger sister who just came back from abroad. At that time, Seiki has no choice but to nod and go along with it. After school, Seiki and his friends were asked to deliver school materials to Saiko, who didn't come to class because he was on holiday. When they arrived at Saiko's super fancy house, they were greeted by Saiko and his bodyguard, who had just come back from a trip abroad. That moment, Saiko took the chance to show off all his expensive stuff, like shiny sports cars, million-dollar art sculptures, famous paintings, rare diamonds, and even exotic pets. But his friends didn't seem very impressed. They wanted something different, which made Saiko feel upset because their reactions weren't what he hoped for. The next day, Saiko invited them over again. This time, he had changed his house into a dreamland for kids. There was a giant playground, a library full of comics, a private ice cream shop, a game room with the latest video games, a collection of cool vintage motorbikes, and even a cake house where you could eat everything. Seeing that, his friends loved it and had so much fun playing with everything. But in all the excitement, they forgot about Nendo, who got stuck in the door and didn't get to enjoy any of the fun. On Christmas Eve, Seiki decides to spend some quiet time at the playground to avoid his friends, who might ruin his peaceful night. But his plan doesn't work. Nendo, Kaido, and Kokomi show up at his house to celebrate Christmas Eve together, and Seiki has no choice but to go back home and spend time with them. This winter feels colder than ever, and the students at school can't concentrate because of the freezing weather. Since the school's heater is broken, Seiki secretly uses his psychic powers to warm up the classroom so everyone can focus. Later that week, Kaido and Nendo invite Seiki to play in the snow and build a snowman since the snow is thicker than usual. Seiki doesn't want to go, but he gets a vision that something bad might happen to them, so he agrees to join. While Kaido and Nendo are having fun in the snow, Seiki doesn't play. Instead, he keeps an eye on them to make sure they're safe. He uses his powers to stop snow from falling on them and to block snowballs that might hit Kaido. Seiki silently protects them while they enjoy the winter fun. One day, Nendo suddenly clutched his chest and collapsed, making Seiki worry. But it turned out Nendo was just pretending to be dead. Soon after, Kaido joined in on the prank, pretending to be dead too. Seiki wasn't surprised, though cause he had already seen this happen in one of his visions, and it just made him annoyed. A few days later, Seiki went to a clothing store to buy a new shirt because his mom asked him to. While looking at clothes, he bumped into Nindo and Kaido, who were arguing about whose style was cooler. Seiki got dragged into being the judge to decide whose outfit looked the best. While they were busy, Kokomi suddenly showed up. Nindo had the idea to ask her to try on some of the clothes they picked. Kokomi agreed happily because she wanted Seiki to notice her and compliment her beauty. When Kokomi was about to try on the outfit Nindo picked, Seiki realized it was way too revealing. Using his powers, he quickly swapped the clothes with a better option. When Kokomi came out wearing the outfit Seiki chose, everyone was amazed at how great she looked. But instead of sticking around, Seiki quietly left the store and went home. The next day, Hero invites Seiki and the gang to join a garbage cleaning competition organized by the mayor. The prize is 1 million yen, so lots of people in town are excited to join. During the competition, a group of young people collected piles of tiny trash and started teasing Hero's group, who were focused on cleaning up the city properly. Annoyed by their behavior, Seiki secretly burned the trash collected by the other group, giving Hero's team an advantage. But in the end, Hero's team lost to a family who caught a dangerous demon snake. At school, Seiki notices a new student named Emu. She's a year younger and super popular because of her cuteness and charm. One day, Nindo comments that Kokomi is much prettier than Emu. Emu gets annoyed and decides to see Kokomi for herself. When Emu finally meets Kokomi, she's shocked by Kokomi's goddess-like beauty. Realizing she can't compete, Emu tries to find Kokomi's weakness. Soon, she figures out that Kokomi has a huge crush on Seiki. Emu then plans to get close to Seiki to make Kokomi jealous. And Seiki, who could hear Emu's thoughts, decided to use the situation to make Kokomi lose interest in him. He pretended to like Emu, but his kind words and compliments made her feel shy, and soon, she started to develop feelings for him. One day, on his way home from school, Seiki found a little hamster that had gotten lost. The hamster had been snatched by a bird and separated from its owner. Seiki helped the hamster find its way back, but when they found the owner, a young boy, he already had another hamster and couldn't take care of this one anymore. So, Seiki asked his friends to see who could take care of the hamster the best. At that time, Hero failed because he made the hamster exercise too much. Kaido failed because his strange actions scared the hamster. Chio failed because she kept the hamster awake all night. In the end, Nindo was the best at taking care of the hamster. He kept its cage clean and made sure it wasn't stressed. When Seiki got home, he saw his parents were happy because his older brother, Kasuki, had sent an electric massage chair as a gift for their mom. In a letter that came with the chair, Kasuki warned that only their mom should use it, and anyone else who tried would get electrocuted. And Seiki's mom, being kind, offered to give Seiki a back massage so he could feel how relaxing it was. But turns out Seiki's back was so tough, it felt like a rock. His parents tried everything to massage him. They used a wooden stick, an iron stick, an ice pick, and even a road drill. Finally, after trying the electric massage chair, Seiki felt so relaxed that his body became super light and he accidentally smashed a wall in the house. One day, while his parents were celebrating their anniversary, Kasuki called to tell them that Seiki's antenna had malfunctioned. Because of this, Seiki was suddenly sent to the past back when his parents were still single. To his surprise, he found out that Nindo's father had tried to flirt with his mom. Realizing he had changed the past, Seiki worked hard to fix everything so his parents could meet and fall in love as they originally did. After fixing the timeline, Seiki returned to his own time. But when he got back, the world had changed because of a world war that had happened in the 21st century. Seiki discovered that the war started because of a time machine created by Kasuki. Acting quickly, Seiki used the time machine to fix the problem and return everything to normal. With Kasuki's help, Seiki was finally able to come back to the present. After that unlucky event, Seiki had to deal with more problems caused by the people around him. With summer vacation coming up, his friends were excitedly planning their holiday activities. During their chat, Psycho bragged about his grand summer plan. He talked about relaxing on his massive, luxurious private yacht and visiting his own private island, worth billions of yen. When Nindo asked if he could come along, Psycho agreed and even invited everyone else, hoping to spend more time with Kokomi. That evening, Psycho and the group boarded his enormous and fancy yacht. But Psycho's assistant had warned him earlier that the yacht wasn't fully repaired, so there was a high chance of an accident. Unfortunately, the assistant's warning came true. The yacht broke down, and they ended up stranded on a deserted island after it sank. All of this happened because earlier, Kaido and Seiki got seasick and fainted. To make things worse, Chiyo accidentally threw away the medicine while trying to take care of Kaido. While Seiki was unconscious, Kokomi accidentally removed his antenna, causing him to lose control of his powers. Because of this, the yacht they were on had an engine failure, sank, and everyone ended up stranded on an empty island. They would have drowned if Seiki hadn't saved them. Using his teleportation powers, he brought everyone safely to an island. On the first day, Arin and Psycho stayed calm, believing a rescue team would find them soon. They were especially confident because the yacht's kitchen supplies had also washed up on the island with them. And Psycho, being the spoiled child of a super-rich family, was sure people would come to save him no matter what. But Seiki was worried. He knew that because he had teleported everyone to an island far from where the yacht sank, it would be hard for a rescue team to find them. While his friends were busy hoping for help, Seiki quietly began thinking of a way to bring everyone back to Japan. Even while resting in his makeshift room, he kept planning how to solve the problem. On the second day of being stranded, Kaido started to lose hope, and his mood became strange and dramatic. Chiyo, on the other hand, was oddly happy because she thought it meant she could stay with Kaido forever. Meanwhile, Psycho felt very sad and guilty, blaming himself for turning their summer vacation into a disaster. Then, out of nowhere, Mara showed up wearing a strange outfit made from forest plants. She handed a small bag of food to everyone, apologizing because she had already eaten most of the food from the yacht. Thankfully, Seiki secretly solved the food problem by teleporting to a convenience store, buying food, and making it look like the supplies had washed up on the beach. Nendo then had an idea to make a raft using coconut tree trunks so they could sail across the sea. Seiki quickly agreed to the plan because he secretly intended to teleport everyone back to Japan while they were in the middle of the sea so they wouldn't notice. Later, Kokomi, Seiki, and Kaido went to find Mara and convince her to come back and help by offering her some snacks. Once she agreed, her strength helped speed up the raft building process. After working hard all day to build the boat, they decided to rest for the night and continue their work the next morning. While everyone else was sleeping, Seiki secretly used his powers to make their boat much stronger. He also created a duplicate island closer to Japan's waters and teleported everyone there without them noticing. The next day, the rescue team found them quickly because of Seiki's efforts. He had spent all night using his powers to make sure they were safe. When Seiki and his friends returned to school, they became quite famous. News about the stranded students had spread everywhere, and it was even covered by the media. At school, the journalist club interviewed Seiki and his friends one by one. But when Seiki told the truth, they found his story too boring and decided to make up a more exciting version. This fake news annoyed Seiki, especially because it made things worse. Thankfully, Kokomi stepped in and explained to everyone that the news was fake. Even so, the journalist club planned to spread more lies, this time about Kokomi. Seiki had had enough. He used his powers to expose the truth about the journalist club's bad behavior, making sure everyone saw how dishonest they were. After a tiring vacation, being stranded on a deserted island, and dealing with fake news, Seiki finally managed to fix everything and bring things back to normal. The next day, a magician asked Seiki to replace him as a clown in a comedy magic show. The magician had an accident after almost being attacked by a lion and couldn't perform. Seiki reluctantly agreed to help so the show could go on. First, Seiki performed a juggling act but added a twist by secretly using his powers to make himself float in the air. Then he stepped in to handle other dangerous acts like walking on ropes, jumping stunts, and even controlling lions to make sure no one got hurt during the performance. Just as the show ended, the studio roof suddenly started to collapse. Seiki quickly used his powers to save everyone, making sure nobody got hurt. The audience never knew how much Seiki had done to keep them safe. The next day, Seiki's class welcomes a new girl named Miko. Miko claims she can predict the future using a crystal ball she always carries with her. Surprisingly, every prediction Miko makes turns out to be correct, which catches Seiki's attention. Miko even says she can see people's auras, making Seiki wonder if she really has fortune-telling powers. Worried that Miko might try to predict his future, Seiki decides to skip school the next day to avoid her. Later, Seiki realizes that Miko's powers don't work when he is nearby. He figures out that his powerful aura is so strong it blocks her ability to read the auras of others around him. That night, Miko and Chiyo are on the school roof when Miko suddenly notices a strange death mark on Chiyo's face. She gets a vision that something bad might happen to Chiyo soon. Not long after, the fence on the school roof that Chiyo was holding suddenly broke, and she started to fall. Luckily, Seiki, who had been watching Miko and Chiyo from the start, used his powers to catch Chiyo before she hit the ground. Miko saw everything and realized that Seiki had psychic powers. Seiki asked her to keep it a secret, and she agreed. After that, Seiki and Miko worked together to help Chiyo get rid of the death mark that kept putting her in danger. Once they successfully removed the mark, Miko became amazed by Seiki's incredible powers and decided she wanted to team up with him as his partner. The next day, when Miko and Seiki met at a cafe, Reita spotted them and quickly joined their table. From that moment, Reita discovered that Miko also had psychic abilities. He immediately started competing with her, trying to prove that he was the better partner for Seiki. One day, Kokomi came to Seiki's house to invite him to visit the temple together. At first, Seiki wanted to refuse, but to avoid any trouble from his older brother or dad, he decided to go with Kokomi. At the temple, Kasuki kept teasing Kokomi, saying she wasn't good enough for someone as perfect as Seiki. Hearing this, Kokomi started crying, and her fans, who adored her, became furious. They chased after Kasuki to teach him a lesson. Seiki couldn't do much to help and had to quietly leave the scene. A few days later, Seiki's class had a judo practice session in pairs. Arin partnered with Kaido, Nindo teamed up with Haro, and since Seiki didn't have a partner, he had to work with the teacher. Once again, Seiki had to carefully control his powers to make sure no one found out about them. When it was Seiki's turn to face Haro, he used his powers subtly to tilt Haro's body and make it look like he had won. This shifted everyone's attention to Haro, allowing Seiki to blend in without drawing any attention to himself. At school, Seiki is always surrounded by odd people. There's Kaido, who is always lost in his wild fantasies. Nindo, who isn't very smart. Reita, who is a bit too nosy. And Arin, who used to be a troublemaker. Seiki often wishes he could live a simple and normal life, like a student named Satu in his class. Satu is average in every way, like his grades, height, and friends are all ordinary. He behaves normally, thinks normally, and lives the kind of quiet life Seiki dreams of. One day, when Seiki was walking home from school with Nindo and Kaido, he noticed something strange. Nindo kept repeating the same thing about their plan to eat ramen together. Seiki quickly realized they were stuck in a time loop, caused by his past time-traveling adventures. To fix it, Seiki needed to completely clear his mind so the loop could end and time could return to normal. At first, it was tough, and the repeating events nearly caused danger for everyone around him. But after focusing hard, Seiki managed to empty his mind, control his powers, and restore everything to normal. A few days later, Seiki's grandfather was super excited because Seiki was coming to visit him. While waiting for Seiki's call, his grandfather got tricked by someone pretending to be Seiki. The fake Seiki asked him to send money to a certain place. As his grandfather was driving to the location, Seiki realized what was happening and teleported into his grandfather's car to stop him. Seiki told him he was being deceived. After looking into it further, Seiki discovered that the person behind the trick was none other than his older brother, Kasuki. Even though Kasuki had tricked him, their grandfather couldn't get mad because he loved his grandson so much. That evening, they planned to go to a fireworks festival together, and Seiki's grandfather was thrilled to see his grandsons wearing yukata. But sadly, he fell ill that night and couldn't join them at the festival. The night festival was full of excitement. Seiki spent most of his time with Kasuki, playing games like bounty hunting and shooting targets. At first, their match ended in a tie, but in the end, Seiki won, just like in the past when he used to beat Kasuki in everything. A few days later, Seiki was asked to deliver some of Kasuki's belongings to their grandparents' house. When he arrived, he noticed the village was filled with robots helping the elderly. Kasuki explained that the robots were there to assist the elderly with their daily chores. At first, Seiki thought it was a good idea and let Kasuki continue. But later, Seiki discovered that Kasuki had a secret plan to turn the villagers into an army to fight against him. When Kasuki realized Seiki found out, he quickly ran away. Their sibling rivalry is always full of surprises, funny incidents, and silly moments that keep their relationship interesting. The next day, Seiki, Kaido, Arin, and Nindo decided to get haircuts because their hair had become too long and messy. In the afternoon, they went to a salon that Kaido often visited to get their hair trimmed and tidy. After their haircuts, they were shocked by Nindo's transformation. His new look was so handsome that he suddenly resembled a charming European man. From that day on, many girls started to admire his style and appearance. One day, after gym class, Nindo looked worried because his pet hamster had gone missing in the gym equipment room. Everyone helped search, and after looking in different places, they found the little hamster hiding, as usual, in Nindo's pants pocket. Just as they were about to leave the room, the barn door accidentally locked. To escape, they sent Nindo's hamster outside to retrieve the key. But instead of bringing back the key, the little hamster ran into the gym teacher, who ended up unlocking the door and rescuing them. In the days that followed, Seiki decided to get closer to Satu, the person he admired for his normal and peaceful life. To start, Seiki showed interest in the things Sato liked, such as comic books, headsets, and his favorite fruit juice. A few days later, Nindo decided to help the baseball club with their practice before the inter-school tournament began. Remembering that Sato was also a member of the baseball team, Seiki chose to go with Nindo to the practice field. Once again, Seiki was amazed by Sato's simple and ordinary life. Sato had average skills, scored standard points, and played on a regular team, which exactly the kind of life Seiki wished for. During practice, the principal announced to the coach and players that the school's baseball team would be disbanded if they lost any games this season. For their first match, they were up against a very strong team. Worried, Seiki thought about secretly using his powers by entering the body of the pitcher to help them win. But in the end, he didn't need to because Nindo easily led the team to victory. Meanwhile, at Saiko's house, his father scolded him for buying an elephant without asking for permission. To teach Saiko a lesson, his father gave him a challenge to live without any luxurious privileges for one whole day. The next day, Saiko asked Kaido and Nindo to take him home, sarcastically complaining that he only had 100,000 yen left, which was, of course, still a lot of money. Before heading home, Nindo and the others invited Saiko to join them for ramen at their favorite restaurant. The ramen there was cheap but super delicious. At first, Saiko was unsure about trying cheap food since he had never eaten it before. But after tasting the ramen, he loved it so much that he asked his personal chef to start including ramen in his dinner menu. The next day, Seiki's class had a drawing activity in pairs. Kokomi asked Seiki to be her partner because no one else could draw her perfectly. However, Seiki found it tricky to draw Kokomi. He didn't want anyone to find out that his drawing skills were flawless and incredibly realistic. Meanwhile, Kokomi was happy to spend time looking at Seiki's face. She drew a portrait of him that looked exactly like him. Seiki, on the other hand, couldn't decide how to draw Kokomi, and after several failed attempts, he left his paper blank. When the others saw Seiki's blank paper, they thought it was the perfect representation of Kokomi cause it's simple, clean, and fitting for someone as perfect as her. The next day, Seiki tries to avoid Imu, who is planning to confess her love to him. To stop her from chasing him, Seiki pretends to be interested in Miko instead. Heartbroken, Imu feels rejected and ends up hugging Kokomi, who never gives up on her love for Seiki. From that moment on, Imu becomes close to Kokomi and decides to support her, hoping Kokomi can move on from Seiki, who has always been distant and cold toward her. One day, Imu, Mera, and Kokomi go on a blind date. Seiki secretly follows them to make sure Kokomi finds a good boyfriend. However, when he overhears Kokomi saying she truly loves him, he decides to interfere and stop the blind date from going well. The next day, Seiki goes with Kaido, Arin, and Nindo to enjoy the cherry blossoms together. They struggle to find an empty spot for their picnic and end up in a quieter park. Luckily, Kokomi shows up, and all the boys who adore her immediately offer them the best spot, letting Seiki and his friends have a perfect picnic. The next day, Seiki, Miko, and Reita team up for their first mission as the school's psychic team. Their task is to find a female student's missing cat that disappeared a few days ago. Miko uses her crystal ball to track the cat, while Reita tries to use his disguise powers to approach it. But the cat gets scared of Reita's strange appearance, so Seiki steps in and uses his powers to find and catch the cat. After they safely catch the cat, Miko's crystal ball suddenly glows, showing a vision of a train accident that's about to happen in a few minutes. Seiki quickly teleports them onto the train's roof. He tells Reita to take over the train driver's body and slow the train down, preventing the accident just in time. Later, Seiki and Miko join Mera in searching for her father, who recently returned to Japan after hiding from debt collectors. With Miko's help, they track him down, but Mera's father tries to run away to avoid seeing his daughter. At the same time, the debt collectors chasing Mera's father suddenly stop and declare his debt fully paid. It turns out Seiki scared and threatened the collectors, making them promise not to bother Mera's father again. Finally, Mera's father doesn't have to run anymore, and Mera is overjoyed to be reunited with him. A few days later, Seiki's father shared some bad news. The company he worked for had gone bankrupt, and he lost his job. Hearing this, Kasuki wanted to help by giving his dad some money to start fresh. But Seiki's father felt too embarrassed to take help from his son. Instead, he decided to start his own business by offering a strange shoe-licking service. Seeing this, Kasuki came up with a creative idea. He teamed up with a comic writer to create a story about a shoe-licking superhero. He even invented a shoe-licking robot, which became so popular that hundreds of people bought it. A few days later, a strong earthquake hit Seiki's town, damaging some furniture in his house. Seiki realized this earthquake was just the beginning of a bigger disaster because of volcanic eruption that would happen soon. In the past, Seiki always used his powers to turn back time by 1 year to stop such disasters. But this time, he wanted to train and face the challenge head-on. He practiced hard on an empty field, crushing huge boulders with his psychic powers. Even after all his effort, Seiki still felt he wasn't strong enough to handle the disaster. In the end, he decided to turn back time by 1 year again to prevent the eruption. One day, Imu went to Seiki and asked him to help her meet some male students so she wouldn't get too close to Kokomi in a way that might look suspicious. Chiyo overheard and quickly introduced Imu to some boys, and they are Haro, who was very kind and full of energy, Psycho, who was super rich, Arin, who was tough and good at fighting, and Kaido, who Chiyo tried to avoid showing off. But Imu wasn't interested in any of them. Haro was too nice, Psycho was too selfish, Arin got into fights too often, and Kaido was too lost in his own fantasies. After that, Seiki introduced her to Reita, who loved to flirt and show off his charm. Still, Imu didn't feel a connection with him either. In the end, everything changed when Imu met Kokomi's older brother while he was walking home with Kokomi. She was immediately amazed by his handsome appearance and fell in love with him at first sight. The next day, Kokomi's older brother asked Seiki to help him pick a birthday gift for Kokomi. At first, he wanted to buy very odd gifts, like a dog-shaped scale, a statue for holding knives, or a glass shaped like a sacred temple. Luckily, Seiki suggested something better, a cute glass with a puppy design on it. Even though Kokomi might not be thrilled with her brother's gift, she would at least appreciate the adorable glass Seiki picked out. One day, Miko started teasing Seiki, which made Kokomi feel annoyed and jealous. Thinking that Seiki liked flirtatious, flashy girls like Miko, Kokomi changed her style to act like one. But even with her new look, she still couldn't impress Seiki. Noticing Kokomi's drastic change, Seiki asked Miko to tell her the truth. He prefers girls who are just themselves. On the other hand, Psycho started to notice that some of his classmates didn't like him when he found mean words scribbled on his desk. This made him feel really sad, and he even thought about moving to another school because he didn't want to be hated anymore. Luckily, Nindo, who always cares and is a genuine friend, cheered him up. Thanks to Nindo, Psycho decided to stay at Seiki's school. One day, Seiki's neighbor asked him to babysit their little boy while they were at work. The boy begged Seiki to take him to the zoo, so Seiki had no choice but to go along. At the zoo, Seiki used his telepathy to make the animals come close and interact with the boy, making him very happy. After a fun day, Seiki brought the boy back home. But as soon as they got home, the boy started crying because they hadn't taken any pictures at the zoo. Seiki's mom, seeing the boy in tears, scolded Seiki for not thinking about it. A few days later, Kasuki visited their house and gave his mom a genius robot cat as a birthday present. His parents were touched and happy with the thoughtful gift. Meanwhile, Seiki was trying to save money to buy a new edition of the coffee pudding maker he really wanted. He worked hard helping his parents around the house to earn some cash. He even went to his grandfather's house and did all the chores there to get extra money. After all his hard work, Seiki finally saved enough to buy the coffee pudding maker. A few days later, Seiki's class got a new student named Akechi. Akechi was super talkative, but also very smart and had excellent detective skills. He quickly figured out that Arin used to be a school thug and even started to suspect that Seiki was a psychic. It turned out that Akechi and Seiki went to the same elementary school, and Akechi had noticed little clues back then that made him think Seiki had special powers. But Seiki denied everything, pretending he didn't know anything and making silly faces to seem clueless. From his first day at the new school, Akechi tried to dig up more information about Seiki from his friends, but none of them gave away anything about psychic powers. That time, Akechi kept trying to get close to Seiki at school, hoping to learn more about him and find proof that he was a psychic. Seiki, on the other hand, did everything he could to trick Akechi and make him stop being suspicious. But no matter what Seiki did, Akechi refused to give up and kept searching for clues. The next day, while Seiki was walking home from school with Kaido and Nindo, something unexpected happened. Seiki's special glasses broke, and he accidentally turned Kaido and Nindo into stone. To fix the situation, Seiki asked Miko and Reida to pretend to be Kaido and Nindo for a whole day until the real Kaido and Nindo returned to normal. Seiki used his powers to help them with their disguises and made sure no one found out. Luckily, Miko and Reida did a great job acting like Kaido and Nindo without causing any big problems. Thanks to their efforts, Seiki was able to handle everything without worrying too much. The next day, after Kaido and Nindo turned back to normal, Reida asked Seiki for help. He wanted to be rescued from a shrine where he had to stay isolated for 3 days. But instead of helping, Seiki decided to tease Reida by showing off delicious food in front of him, making him suffer. After the 3 days were over, Reida surprisingly became a better person and wasn't tempted by adult books anymore. Unfortunately, Seiki accidentally brought back Reida's perverted personality while treating a cut on Reida's leg after he fell down the temple stairs. A few days later, Seiki's grandparents decided to visit him for a family gathering. But on their way to the house, they got separated. By chance, Seiki's grandfather met Kokomi, and his grandmother ran into Miko. Seiki's grandfather walked with Kokomi toward the house, talking about how amazing Seiki's abilities were and how much he admired him. Meanwhile, his grandmother was having fun partying at a nightclub with Miko. Luckily, Seiki's mom picked up both grandparents, and they finally arrived safely at the house, where the whole family could gather together. One day, Seiki and his friends heard that the school's journalism club was planning to spread fake news about Kokomi. They were even trying to find her worst photo to embarrass her. Since Seiki cared about Kokomi, he decided to secretly watch over her on her way home from school. But he soon realized he didn't need to worry cause Kokomi, with her goddess-like charm, managed to handle the situation all by herself. However, the journalism club didn't give up. They decided to edit Kokomi's photo to make her look bad. Luckily, Seiki stopped them just in time by secretly destroying their equipment, preventing the fake photo from being published. A few days later, Seiki and Kokomi were chosen as committee representatives for the school's performance festival. Their class decided to put on a play based on an ancient legend. But on the day of the performance, their class had to perform with very simple costumes because Psycho, who had lent them fancy costumes, decided to take them all back. During the play, Seiki's class faced many problems. Arin had to wear a costume that was just a fishing rod. Hiro only managed to finish half of his costume, and Kaido got super nervous the moment he stepped on stage. Luckily, when Kokomi entered the stage, Seiki used his powers to hypnotize the audience, He made them believe that everyone in the play was wearing real, amazing costumes. The next day, Seiki, Nindo, Kaido, and Arin got scolded by their teacher for causing trouble on their way home from school the previous day. To avoid more problems, Seiki decided to walk home with Haro instead. Haro didn't cause trouble, but their walk home took a long time because Haro kept stopping to help people along the way. While they were taking a short break to drink water, they saw a girl about to be robbed. Haro immediately ran to help her and bravely fought the robber. When the robber tried to attack Haro with a knife, Seiki used his powers to stop him and defeat the criminal. The next day, their heroic actions were featured in the local newspaper, and the story spread quickly. Everyone at school, including the teachers, felt proud of them. A few days later, Seiki decided to test one of his clones by asking it to complete a simple task for his mom. Seiki had been secretly training to create clones, hoping to build extra strength to handle big disasters like the earthquake from before. Even though the clones had almost the same powers as Seiki, they were still hard to control. During a test, Seiki sent one of his clones to shop at a mini-market. But the clone wasn't perfect yet and almost hurt one of Seiki's friends. Realizing this, Seiki knew he still needed more practice to perfect his clones. The next day, when Seiki got home from school, Akechi suddenly showed up. He revealed that he had been secretly following Seiki and watching everything he did. In Seiki's room, Akechi started explaining all the strange things he noticed. He mentioned a sumo wrestler who appeared out of nowhere when Seiki's glasses broke, a mysterious sniper who helped Haro and Seiki stop a robber, and a magician who saved Nindo from being hit by a falling flower pot. Akechi was clearly piecing everything together, making Seiki uneasy. Everyone who mysteriously appeared whenever Seiki used his powers was actually part of his plan to keep his abilities a secret. He had realized that Akechi was secretly following him and trying to uncover the truth. And Akechi didn't stop there. He found even stronger evidence by interviewing people who had been teleported by Seiki. They all described suddenly being moved to a different place in a way that seemed like magic. This made Akechi even more convinced that Seiki was a psychic who used his powers to hide his identity. To stop Akechi from finding out the truth, Seiki decided to temporarily turn him into stone while he thought of a way to keep his secret safe. Akechi's obsession with Seiki started when they were kids. Back then, Seiki had helped Akechi, who was injured from being bullied, by using his healing powers. Akechi noticed something unusual and began to suspect him. Seiki also once used his powers to scare off the bullies who had been picking on Akechi. From that moment, Akechi became curious and started to believe that Seiki had psychic powers. Because of that, Seiki decided to go back in time to change the past so that Akechi wouldn't suspect him anymore. But no matter how many times he tried, he couldn't find a way to erase Akechi's suspicions. In the end, Seiki had no choice but to admit to Akechi that he was a psychic. To prove it, he even showed Akechi a little bit of his powers. After hearing the truth, Akechi felt relieved because his suspicions were finally confirmed. He promised to keep Seiki's powers a secret. The next day, Seiki was at a cafe with Miko and Reita. He told them that a student at their school now knew about his powers. Miko and Reita were shocked and upset, worried that their secrets might get out too. But after seeing how smart and skilled Akechi was at analyzing things, they realized there was nothing they could do. The following day, Seiki noticed something strange. His friends were acting very differently. Kato looked neat and tidy. Nindo had gained weight. Arin had been in a motorcycle accident. Haro was even more muscular than before. Kokomi had styled her hair in 2 braids. Chio had become chubbier, and Mera was suddenly rich. At that time, Seiki couldn't figure out why they were all changing so much. At night, Seiki sat quietly, confused about why his friends had suddenly changed so much. Then, out of nowhere, a god appeared before him. The god explained that this life was the final episode, but as a gift, they would give Seiki one ordinary day before it all ended. The next morning, as Seiki walked to school, he noticed something strange, that his friends were back to their usual selves. Their appearances and quirky personalities had returned to normal, just as they were before. Seiki realized that the ordinary day God mentioned was today. Everything had been reset to how it used to be, like nothing ever changed. The anime ends with Seiki explaining that this is a comedy, And no matter how many changes happen to each character, they can always go back to being themselves in just one day. The moral lesson from this anime is never trust a psychic wearing sunglasses indoors, cause they might just be saving the world from your bad haircut. Also, if your yacht sinks, it's probably because you brought too many rich kid problems on board.